Hey guys, it's Grand Admiral Thrawn, and today I am reviewing That 90s Show, a sequel to That 70s Show, which is a show I have never talked about on my channel because it's never really come up. Now, I was really excited for That 90s Show because I really liked That 70s Show. It's one of my favorite shows, and I still watch it a lot. And what I can say is, it was okay. Yeah, the main problem with this show is the new characters. They aren't really that interesting, but I think the main problem is actually that the show's only actually got 10 episodes, and it has to focus on both the new characters that they're trying to create and the old ones that are returning. Oh, by the way, there are spoilers in this video. So if you would not like to get it spoiled, sign off. Anyway, I'm going to start with characters and then work my way through as I go. I'm going to start with Leia, the main character. She was the best out of all the new characters because she feels just like a new Eric, but like his daughter. She's just perfect. She's just like how Eric was on that 70s show, but unique in her own way. That was my favorite thing. Like, she's nerdy like Eric was, but then she's also got some things like how Donna was. She's just like a perfect mix of Eric and Donna from that 70s show. Plus, Leia is her name, and that's exactly what Eric Foreman would name his daughter. I really liked that. She's good through all the episodes. I like how she wants to meet new friends and just spend the summer here instead of at space camp with her dad. Yeah, she was a good character, and I was actually surprised and glad with her. Up next, I think I'll talk about Red and Kitty, the main two returning cast. It was great just with the introduction of them. Red and Kitty are just like how they were on that 70s show, but at the same time different in that they're older. Red is always hilarious with how he's so hard on everybody, and Kitty with how she's just so sweet to everybody. That was great. The episode when Kitty gets a tattoo is hilarious because they're making all these jokes about it, and it's just a great episode. I feel like these two were perfect in this because they're also just like how they were on 70s. They're basically the guardians of the kid who's in the basement with his friends, or her friends in this case. And I think that was perfect. Up next, I have Eric and Donna. Eric only being in the first episode was a bit of a shocker, but it's perfect because it's just like with Red and Kitty. Every character so far feels like just how they left off in that 70s show, but just brought into this. And Donna shows up in more episodes than Eric, which I do like. And they're just perfect. It feels like how they left off in that 70s show. Although season 8 is like not a good season of that 70s show. Eric and Leia have good interactions. Donna and Leia have great interactions. These two are perfect in this show. Leo. Leo is Leo. He's always just a comedic character who smokes and does drugs, but he's just funny. And something about that 70s show later seasons is when they brought Leo back, I didn't really find him that funny. When he was originally on the show, he had different ways of how he was funny. When they bring him back on that 70s show in like a later season, they mainly just go off of like these amnesia jokes, like he can't remember anything. And it was funny at first, but it just got boring because Leo had different types of how he was funny originally, but when they brought him back, it was just the same old jokes. And I didn't like that. When he's in this show, it feels like the original Leo. He has variety with his humor, and it's funny. Even though he's only in 2 episodes, I really liked it. Because he felt just like Leo. Fez was also a great character who they brought back on. And I was glad how Fez got several episodes. Because Fez was like... Eric was the main character of that 70s show, but he did leave in the later seasons, and that's mainly why it failed. But Fez was also right up there. And I like how we actually learn more about him because 70s ended with how him and Jackie ended up together, and I like how they didn't just not explain that. They actually went into depth about how Fez and Jackie broke up and all that, and that was good. Fez is funny, like when he's in the circle with the new kids, that was funny. Fez is just like how he was on 70s too, but in a different way, kinda. And I really like that, how he acts like Fez, but he isn't the same as Fez was, like how he's now an adult. And him and Sherry have good interactions, and Fez is just very funny in this show. Kelso and Jackie. They're only a cameo in the first episode, and that was a problem I had because they felt so good when they brought them back. Like how Red is talking to Jay, and he goes, "By the way, what's your name?" Jay Kelso. How then Kelso comes in. That was hilarious. I laughed so hard. And then when Jackie comes in and yells, "Michael, let's go!" That was funny. I really liked that, and I wish they could have had more than just a cameo on the show. But I get it, there's only 10 episodes this season. Bob is only in one episode, but I think he's handled very well in that it's Leia's birthday, and him and Red are kind of competing for getting her the best gift. And Bob also feels like just a natural runoff of how he was in 70s. And that was really good. Fenton is the last character I have for returning cast. Fenton was never a main character. He was always just this side character that Fez would argue with, and it was always funny because their arguing was one of the funniest parts on the show. And I like how Fenton, when he's in this, I just knew he was going to end up being Sherry's landlord. And it wasn't, like, obvious. Well, I mean, it was obvious, but it was just still great to see him return. Even though they teased it. It was still great seeing Fenton back on it, arguing with Fez. But how he's got a deeper voice now, that was also cool. Like how it just feels like Fenton trying to impress everybody. That was good. And that's it for returning characters. Now I'm going to go into a character that did not return and why I think it was actually bad for the show. And that is Hyde. There is stuff going on with Danny Masterson. I'm not getting into that. I'm getting into why I think Hyde should have been in the show. Now, I don't say they should have recast him. I'm just saying that the show could have used Hyde. Because Hyde was like the third main character of that 70s show. And we don't even get a flashback. When Fez is flashing back to the circle, it shows Eric, Jackie, and Kelso. Why was Jackie there? She uses the circle the least. Eric and Kelso, that made sense, but A, Hyde uses the circle the most, and he's the whole reason why they have that. And B, he was like Fez's best friend, and Fez was saying, "I miss my friends" in those flashbacks. We couldn't have gotten so there's this car, man, and it runs on water. Now, I know there's stuff going on with Danny Masterson, and yeah, I get it, but still, Hyde would... It feels like the show is just missing a major thing, not including a Hyde. They could have just, referenced him, too. They don't even do that. There's no mentioning of Hyde, and he lived in the foreman's basement. They don't even mention him. Or his room, even, for that matter, while they're in the basement. They don't reference it or anything, and I feel like that just... It feels like they're acting like Hyde never even existed. That was the problem I had with the show. Another problem is the new gang. Now, when you do a legacy spin-off, you have the problem of you have to incorporate the new characters and the old ones. And with that 90s show, they only have 10 episodes, and they have to bring back all the old characters and introduce these new characters. And I feel like they fall short on that with most of them. I feel like there are exceptions, like Leia, how I stated. She was amazing. But the other characters, not so much. I'm going to start with Gwen. Gwen was okay, but she never really has anything to stand out. She's funny at moments, but that's about it. There's nothing really to her, apart from, her mom, who's a funny character, and that her dad's not really around. And her brother. She's brothers with Nate. That's about it, though. We don't know much anything else about her because it's 10 episodes and they barely spent any time on her. So I can't really say much about Gwen. She was okay, though. Jay. I feel like the Jay and Leia relationship gets too much screen time and they barely even have any chemistry together. So it just comes off as annoying at moments, like when they're just forcing on the Leia and Jay relationship. That was one of the least entertaining parts of the show because they just don't have any chemistry, really. Eric and Donna had so much chemistry. These two just don't have chemistry, it feels like. And they could have spent more. This show should have just had way more episodes, I feel like. Because that 70s show, there was like 20 to something episodes per season. This show gets 10. And I feel like that's its biggest problem. But yeah, Jay was okay at moments when he's on his own, but when he's around other characters, he sometimes comes off as annoying and boring, kind of. So that's all I really have to say about Jay. Ozzy. I feel Ozzy is the other character who I feel like is an exception for this because Ozzy is a comedic relief character in that he's gay and he makes these like snappy insults at other characters and they're funny insults. And Ozzy was a funny character. Like how he insults other characters. Like when Leia comes in and goes, "Hi," because she was in the circle, he goes, "Obviously." Ozzy has these funny moments, and like his interactions with Kitty and Red, they're funny. Ozzy is a good character who I feel like they did spend enough time on because he's just comedic relief. He doesn't need a bunch of time or anything. He's comedic relief, and that's all he is, basically. And we still get more about his character because he has a whole episode of him just trying to tell Kitty he's gay. Up next, I'm going to use them both as one, Nikki and Nate. Nikki gets next to nothing on as a character apart from making out with Nate. I feel like that's all she does throughout the entire show. So she barely has anything, and she's okay when she's not doing that because they do spend some moments on her as a character, and in them they're okay. And then Nate is kind of like the replacement for Kelso in this show, which he does a good job of playing a moron, but sometimes he just comes off as annoying instead of funny, but when they just are focusing on him too much, when they're forcing the humor with him. When it just comes off natural, it is funny of how he's an idiot. But when they just are forcing it, it's not funny. And then how they spend time with these two's relationship, it actually is funny because they aren't the main characters that the relationship is always revolving around. They're like the Jackie and Kelso. So I feel like Nikki is okay, and Nate is a good character half the time. The other half the time, he comes off as annoying, kinda. Sherry. She was a great new character. She's the foreman's neighbor, and she's dating Fez. And her house is a wreck, and she has 2 kids. She was a great character, and some people are saying that she's like this show's replacement for Lori, because Lori's actress had died, so they couldn't get Lori back on the show. And I actually kind of agree with that statement. She does kind of, in a certain way, represent Lori in that she acts like Lori, but is her own unique character, and that's what I like about her. Her interactions with Fez are hilarious. Her interactions with Kitty and Red are hilarious in that she's basically the exact opposite of them. She does not have her life in control. Red and Kitty do have their lives in control. Now I'm done with Now that I'm finished with characters, I'm going to go over episodes. Episode 1 is my favorite of the series, I believe, because it sets up this show in a great way, but it mainly revolves around the returning characters and Leia in this episode. That was my favorite part because it needs to set up its main character and the returning characters. And I feel like it handled that perfectly, like how they're originally just going to Red and Kitty's for the 4th of July, but then Leia meets some friends and she wants to stay the whole summer, and her and Eric are arguing, and it's hilarious to see Eric acting like how Red was on that 70s show. That was one of the funniest parts. And then Eric sees how she needs what he had with his friends, and so he lets her stay for the summer. That was good. Um, I like the episode when Leia's trying to impress them all, so she does a movie night, and how she's trying to get the perfect movie for them to watch. I liked that episode. I like the episode when they introduce Sherry. That one's good. I like when they have returning cast members on episodes. I like the episode when they go to the rave, but they forgot Ozzy. How they do that little Home Alone, how they forgot him joke. That was actually funny. I like the references to movies that came out in the 90s in this show, like how they reference Clerks and Batman Forever. It's good in this show with references. Like, not as good as that 70s show was, I don't feel like, because that one had A New Hope and all that, but this one does a good job of it. I like the episode before the last one. That one's good. I like the last one, actually. But one thing I do feel like is as the show went on, some of the episodes just kind of got worse. But I do feel like the last two were actually pretty good. But it just feels like some of the episodes shift off, is all. I like the one when Bob shows up, which I already talked about. Anyway, this is my overall thoughts on that 90s show. I feel like it should have had more than 10 episodes. It had great potential, but the fact that it's got to be narrowed down to 10 episodes is its biggest problem. So it doesn't have time to introduce its new characters. It does spend most of its time with the old ones who people did come to see returning. But overall, I think that if it had more episodes, it would have been better, but the fact that it only had 10 wasn't enough. And the returning cast basically carry the entire show. If it didn't have the returning cast, the show would suck. It doesn't matter how good the new characters get. Without the returning ones, this show would have sucked. So I feel like this show is good. Not great, not bad, just good. Anyway, this is Grand Admiral Thrawn signing off. If you enjoyed, leave a like, and tell me what you thought of that 90s show in the comments down below.